Hey guys, welcome to Get Busy Watching. I'm your host, Honest Dan. Let's talk movies.
What is that? Are they bats?
The drones! The drones! So, I got you. Going under. Dive deep.
Mike Banning, you're being charged with the attempted murder of the President of the United States.
The President's top guardian angel has fallen.
There's somebody else behind us. It wasn't me.
It's directed by Rick Roman Waugh, known for Snitch. The main cast includes Gerard Butler from How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, Den of Thieves, and Geostorm. Danny Huston from Stan and Ollie, Wonder Woman, and X-Men Origins Wolverine. Nick Nolte from Head Full of Honey and Ridiculous Six, Piper Perabo from The Prestige and The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle, and Morgan Freeman from The Nutcracker and the Four Realms, Going in Style, Now You See Me Too, and will be in the upcoming The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, due out in 2020. I was a little disappointed by this one. Yeah. I feel like it, compared to the over-the-top, balls-to-the-wall action that was in the first two films, this was almost underplayed. I know that's a weird thing to say, and maybe that's not quite accurate, but let's face it, the first movie was about North Korea taking over the White House, and the next one is about London being taken over. This one just feels like almost too small-scaled. It doesn't even feel like it belongs in the same universe. Let's start with positives. Gerard Butler, as usual, delivers his A-game. The guy comes on set, brings his energy, and he's just a lot of fun to watch. Danny Huston is actually going to be who I consider to be the better actor, though. At least in terms of raw performance here. The reason why I say this is because it's no secret that he's going to be the villain of the story, or at least the rival to Mike Banning. What frustrates me, but in a good way, is that when you first meet him, he's actually like a really nice guy. You kind of like him. He's got personality. He's caring for a retired soldier who's no longer on the battlefield, but kind of wishes that he was still there. I like how he interacts with Mike's wife, and God damn it, this guy made me want to learn how to do an origami bull. 1 second. I dabble in a little bit of origami myself, so I mean, I only know how to do these flapping birds, a very basic butterfly. Once upon a time, I knew how to do a ninja star, you know, the old high school bullshit. And the most recent thing I learned how to make was a flower, but that involved like 5 different pieces of paper, which in my opinion is just a little too much and a little beyond my level of patience, but I want to know how to do that bull now. So at some point in the future, I'm going to look at that. I'm going to look that up. So I can thank this movie for giving me a little bit of extra inspiration for my extracurricular activities when I'm not doing any of this. But back on track with Houston's character. What I liked about him is that I liked him. And it sort of upset me that I knew he was going to be the bad guy of the story. That's generally what you hire Danny Huston to do. So once he's on screen, you know that he's going to be a bad guy at some point. I don't know, like, it sort of was heartbreaking because he was so nice. I know origami is just, knowing how to do origami is just a quirk as opposed to a personality, but I don't see it that often. And it makes me happy knowing that something that I like now is something that a character is doing, so it appeals to me. It's very surface level, I admit that, but man, I didn't want him to be a villain. I wanted him to have a redeeming moment at the end or something. It never happened. He's just a villain of the story. You know, I kind of want... I feel like I'm making it sound like this movie, the action scenes aren't very good. Actually, some do stand out. And the very first action scene with the bombing drones, whatever those things were, that was actually a pretty harrowing scene. I think the only thing I would change is maybe, like, you know, see more body parts flying around instead of just extras doing ragdoll effects. But other than that, all the explosions, the hopelessness of the situation, and the fact that their guns are not working and saving anyone, it is a little heartbreaking in that way. It's not like you know these characters, though. It's just kind of like, wow, these guys are fucked. At least that's the only real emotion you get out of it. It's just, you know, loud explosives. And there's even a character who's like with President Morgan Freeman at the time. He has to get him off before the drones bomb him. It's like they both could have gotten off that boat. There's no reason why there couldn't have been more than a couple of survivors in this movie. I don't know why they didn't do that. It's just because action movies. Mike Banning needs to be the hero and the only hero.
I work alone. I don't want no partner. I don't need no partner, and I ain't gonna never have no partner.
But still, as the scene goes in of itself, it is a lot of fun. Definitely one of the more standout action scenes is after Mike reunites with his dad, played by Nick Nolte. This guy's a paranoid loon. Like, he refuses to be a part of the Big Brother system that he thinks America's become. But apparently he's been busy living in the woods, because once the bad guys find Mike and his dad, and they've brought like an entire platoon of dudes. Man, almost like every square inch of that forest was just marinated in explosives. They're hiding behind a tree stump, and man, Nick Nolte's just detonating explosives left and right. People are flying everywhere. It was a lot of fun to watch that, I admit. And it was pretty funny too, just to see Mike's expression going, what the fuck? Like, no one can believe how many explosions are going on right now.
Explosion!
So I love that. That was a great scene. Definitely the climactic action scenes taking place at the hospital were actually pretty harrowing. Aside from some noticeably bad smoke CGI. But other than that, this is where the movie really kicks off with its over-the-top action. It actually brought me back to that scene in Heat, where the shootout is taking place in broad daylight, and like civilians are getting caught between the crossfire. I mean, it's not nearly that good. Don't get me wrong, but the fact that it's a little more tactical at this point, it feels like a little more effort was put into it this time around, at least in terms of the action. But it's time to talk about the negatives, and this movie's got plenty of them. For one thing, I really wanted to like the more personal touches they were putting on Mike. Like, now he has health problems, so now he can't, like, take as many punches. Or at least that's what you think it's going to build up to, but they kind of do the thing that they did with the Wolverine, where they try to take away Wolverine's powers, or healing factor, rather, but it doesn't really amount to much, because he doesn't fight tactically. So any action scene where he gets shot, he just walks it off later on, as if he actually still had his healing factor. It's kind of the same deal here. He has, like his vision gets blurred from time to time. He suffers from physical ailments that you would think would play more into the action scenes, where now he has to be a little more careful. He has to be a little more patient. He can't just go guns a-blazing all Rambo style. But it doesn't really mean anything in the long run. It's just sort of a subplot that just happens to exist.
Well, that was pointless.
Speaking of those action scenes, some of them aren't quite up to snuff. There's a scene where Mike's being hauled away by bad guys, and then, he starts a fight in the back seat of the car, which isn't new in action movies, but this one, it's so dark. Like, it's Suicide Squad level dark. You can't tell what the fuck is happening. The camera's moving all over the place. It's edited like, it's so poorly edited, you can't follow what's actually happening. All you know is a general, Mike's wrestling a gun out from someone's possession, but you don't see anything, and that's a terrible way to conduct your action. There's also kind of a surprisingly by-the-numbers car chase, where Mike steals like a semi-truck, and the police are after him, and again, all you really get is just he swerves into one, and that flips a car. He just rams another one off the road, and they're tainted. They can't do anything anymore. They're off the road now, or something like that. Even if I'm wrong on how it's being portrayed, it's just kind of it leaves such a little impact compared to other action scenes. I suppose you could argue that the tank that the semi-truck was carrying and having that flip over and block the road so the rest of the cops can't follow was pretty cool. But again, it happens once, and action scenes with semi-trucks have happened before and have done so much better in the past. Some of the more dramatic elements don't really work either. The relationship between Mike and his dad, I don't know, man. I couldn't emotionally attach to it. It feels like any other action movie with this character's background. You lost the right to call me son because you walked out on me and mom when I was just a kid. It's like, man, this feels so generic. Although I can appreciate the acting that Nick Nolte is putting into it, because this man really, really sells it. Because he goes into his backstory about, I came back from the war, from Nam, and I'm just like, I'm all fucked in the head. I'm paranoid. I don't trust our government and all that shit. And you can buy that he's legitimately brokenhearted about leaving his family, but he also doesn't seem to regret the safety of his forest, his little cabin in the woods. There's a hit and miss in that regard. Honestly, the truth is, half the reason why this movie just feels really underwhelming is because there really isn't a lot of action. It's a lot of drama trying to be played up like, okay, Banning is framed for trying to kill the president, all this other stuff, and there's a surprising lack of any action that holds the movie together. And what action is there, it's kind of a split between good and kind of memorable versus really underplayed. At least with the other films, you had over-the-top, loud action. And you had a fun rivalry between Banning and whoever the antagonist is. Just him throwing out stupid little cheesy one-liners, but it was always fun to watch that and just see how insulting he can be.
Nothing you try and do here tonight can atone.
Yeah, maybe not. But I reckon fucking your shit up will be a pretty good start.
You are the one with the president.
Bingo. So why don't you boys pack up your shit and head back to Fuckheadistan or wherever it is you're from?
I love that shit, and it was sorely missing here. Yeah, just overall, I think it's a pretty mediocre film. Actually below average for what I was expecting and hoping for. Because, unlike a lot of people, I don't mind just straight dumb action and violence. And I was hoping for that here, much like Olympus and London Has Fallen. This movie doesn't really have any of that. It feels like it should have just been titled something else, and I probably would have been a little more invested and would have cared a lot more. But as is, I've seen worse. I've definitely seen worse movies. I just don't think this is worth anyone's time. Just see the other two films if you want dumb action. So, my honest rating for Angel Has Fallen is a weak 3 out of 5. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Hope to see you soon. Now, if you excuse me, I'm going to go dick around with this for a while.